Hello and greetings fellow StarCrafters, and welcome back to game number 3 between MouzThorzain, the blue Terran player, and DongRaeGu, the red Zerg player. This map is Shakuras Plateau, one of the oldest maps in the map pool. I think as soon as the game was launched. I'm not sure if it was on the beta. It might have even been on the beta. Not quite this version, as it had a backdoor tunnel, which DongRaeGu, I'm sure, is very glad that there is no backdoor rocks going through here and into this other place. And into this base as well. As Terrans love to do that, you just have the siege tank line and then blast open the rocks, and then you can able to just basically go into the back door, destroy all the Zerg's tech at their main base, and eventually just wipe them out basically. So Terran players aren't able to do that anymore. They have to go do it the hard way, go through the main little entrance here, but nonetheless, it does have a very easy to secure expansion right here. 3 barracks will cover that entire opening, or, I guess 3 3x3 buildings of any kind. Which means that it tends to be more of a macro-oriented map. After that, though, it gets a little tricky in terms of what base you want to take. Sometimes people take this base. Typically, Terrans or Protoss will tend to take this base, whereas Zerg players tend to stretch themselves a little bit more by taking this one, and this one as their 3rd and 4th, as that makes it much more difficult to attack all 3 bases at the same time for an opposing Terran player or opposing Protoss player, as an example. Now, the Overlord right here is going to be floating across. I'm not really sure how Overlords... Okay, so they supposedly have helium, or maybe hydrogen in them. It's one of the two in them that help them float. But I don't actually get how they move. It's like, what do they move, the little tentacle thingies, or they shift their weight, or whatever's going on? And oh, wow, that is so smart. That is something that players do not do often enough. He knows the Overlord timing well enough that an Overlord's going this way, because typically what a Zerg player will do is put the Overlord just around the side and make sure that while the Overlord can see the command center, they will not be able to spot the Overlord. So Thorzain, knowing the timing for the Overlord, sends his SCV over there to check for the Overlord and to see exactly where DongRaeGu is spawning. And that way, when he actually scouts later, he won't be scouting this expansion up here in the top corner. He will only scout DongRaeGu's expansion. As you can see, the SCV is going down the correct way as well. It's less useful on this map because there's only 2 spawn locations. You cannot spawn top and bottom, as you can see on the minimap. You can't spawn like that. You have to be across. It's more useful on maps like Metalopolis, where there's 3 other locations, or well, I guess 2 other locations typically in Metalopolis where they can spawn, because you can't close spawn in Metalopolis anymore. But it is useful definitely on this. It saves some scouting time, and probably the SCV is just going to head home, or maybe we'll be seeing, we do have a Marine here, so he could be building a bunker. He opted not to build a bunker the last time, and it looks like he's doing about the same thing. That's kind of interesting. I'm kind of wondering why he's doing that trick a couple of times in a row. Because look, you can see only 4 Zerglings are coming out for DongRaeGu, 2 spawn, 2 more on the way. DongRaeGu knows that no bunker was going to go down, so maybe Thorzain probably should have switched it up if he's going to do something like that. Switch it up and eventually, bunker rush at one point in time or something like that. And 2 command centers for Thorzain? What? Oh my God! Is that really his? That's ridiculous. Wow. Okay, so this build, obviously super macro oriented. Part of the advantages of this build for Terran is that, well, of course, first of all, they can float their command centers, so that's why only Terran can do this build. But on top of that, when they upgrade their command centers to orbital commands, they get mules, and mules pay for the command centers. So that's part of the reason for getting 2 early command centers, is you can actually end up making up the resources in your main base. Now, one issue with that is, I wonder if he's no, he's not going to take this base with it. If you want to take this base with it, it would be because the Overlords could easily spot that, or Mutalisk or something like that. So I don't think he's going to try to hide an expansion. If he was going to hide it, he would build a command center here and put it up there, which is very effective on this map. But it does mean he's going to get a lot of extra resources, because he's going to have so many extra mules from having 3 command centers right away. Obviously, he's not going to be able to be as aggressive as he was in previous games as a result of having to build 2 extra command centers, because it is 650 or 550 resources, which is the cost of the command center plus the orbital upgrade. Now, part of this strategy, though, does mean that he is going to have to get a relatively early 3rd in order to make sure that he doesn't mine out his Bane and his Natural too quickly with the large amount of mules that he's going to be having as a result of the 3rd command center. Stim is on the way, which leads me to believe that he's aiming for some sort of timing drop or something like that. We also see 2 factories, which means he's going for, I was going to say, either Blue Flame Hellions or a lot of Siege Tanks. He's going for Blue Flame Hellions. So we should see, as soon as he gets to 150 minerals and gas, we should see that upgrade going on. DongRaeGu, in the meantime, seems content to mostly drone up. He does have a decent amount of roaches right here, and actually there's very little defense for Thorzain. Thorzain hasn't even bothered to put up a bunker right now, so those roaches could be fairly effective in actually being able to deal some damage here, as the Marine is going to be caught outside. The rest of these Marines are going to want to retreat, unless, oh wow, if he loses those Marines, he now has no defense for the rest of these roaches, except for the Blue Flame Hellions right now. He is building a siege tank out of this factory, but he's going to have to pull a lot of SCVs. He's going to replace those supply depots that are now being taken out. The tech lab is going to be sniped, which means that the timing of stim is going to have to be reset, and those roaches are going to be able to kill a lot of SCVs. It looks like he is actually just going to run with his SCVs at this point in time. I think he's probably waiting for the siege tank to come out. He does have one Marauder, which was able to finish, but Thorzain largely caught with his pants down in this situation. The forces behind the SCVs are doing a decent amount of damage. Looks like the SCVs are actually going back to work. I'm not quite sure if that's a good idea. Now with the siege tank, it actually looks like it should be fairly effective. You will be able to take out the Marauder and probably a couple of Hellions, or maybe all the Hellions actually. Quite possibly, but the siege tank will live, and the siege tank will be able to use his high armor DPS to be able to take out the rest of the roaches. The roaches are able to snipe. How many kills does he have? 3 kills. And to get a 4th kill against the SCVs. So a lot of damage actually being done from that early roach push from DongRaeGu. Thorzain probably should have been a little bit more prepared. Probably he could have afforded to build a bunker. A bunker probably would have stopped all those shenanigans, as he could have simply had a bunch of SCVs behind it repairing it, while the Marines from inside the bunker were able to take it out. Thorzain could have easily suspected that as well, as he did see Thorzain do something similar in a previous game, obviously during the series as well. DongRaeGu is mostly primarily still droning up, though. As you can see, his lair is actually just coming up now, a very late lair, which means that he's going for a very highly economical build. I believe he has already 53 workers out of his 68 total supply. That's a very high count for workers, and definitely something he's been trying to accomplish. He's even building more drones. He's got 5 more on the way. He's got a spine crawler for defense to be able to cover the entrances of both areas, as he did see a bunch of Hellions, so he is worried about some sort of Blue Flame Hellion drop or something like that. And you can see that Zergling's speed is actually just coming out right now. It's delayed again because he was primarily aiming for the roach attack, and he was using all of his gas towards that effect, and just delaying his gas in general in order to be able to get as many drones as possible, kind of Spinishua style, although obviously he didn't eschew gas entirely from his build. You can also see the Spire going down right now. DongRaeGu with his famous Mutalisks and his excellent Mutalisk control that we saw in the previous game. Not quite able to win it in the previous game, but, you know, can't win everyone. Looks like these Hellions are going to scoot around. There is a Spine Crawler, a Queen, and 2 Roaches there, so they won't be able to deal any damage inside of that base. And actually, Thorzain is moving out with a relatively small force. This is very dangerous on his part, as he doesn't really have any way to deal with Zerglings at this point in time. He probably is just scanning to take out as many creep tumors as possible, but he really, I don't know, this seems a little... That's a lot of forces that could very easily be taken out by like 15, 16 Zerglings. Could easily get us around, especially with a bunch of roaches as well. So not quite sure he's going to do that. He isn't going to pay for it though, as he was able to take out the creep tumors. Very good job on his part, limiting the amount of creep spread that Zerg players are able to do. It's a very important part to beating a Zerg player, is limiting the amount of creep spread that they're able to get. Looks like he will be going for Marine Siege Tank again. He's getting a tech lab on the factory and 2 more reactors on those barracks. He had, I think, what, 5 reactor barracks in the previous game, which just shows you how unbelievably fast he can pump up Marines in those sorts of situations. Looks like a bunch of roaches are going to come in, though. There is a supply depot wall. It is not quite complete there, as this little section is still missing. Looks like that Hellion is going to want to run away, is able to lift all the supply depots in time, and the huge amount of sieged up siege tanks is going to scare away the rest of those roaches, unless they had like burrowed roaches coming in or something like that, which could be pretty effective in this sort of situation, because I guess maybe they don't fit through there. I think they do though. I think they just barely be able to fit through there. I think we saw, what was it, 11 Mutalisks coming out. Let's take a look. We have 10 Mutalisks right now, as well as 2 more on the way. So maybe like 12 Mutalisks or something like that. Moving in, those Mutalisks will be able to take off probably the supply depot. I don't think there is 1 missile turret right here, and he has 1 missile turret on the natural as well. Oh wow, those siege tanks are unprotected. Uh-oh. Thorzain needs to respond. Okay, so it looks like able to snipe 2 siege tanks at like very little damage in terms of the Mutalisk being taken. Combat shield is going to be sniped as well. He already has stim though, so he should be fine on that front. Combat shield doesn't take as long to finish as stim does, so it should be less of a big deal. He does want to make sure keep his marines spread so that they're always covering the siege tanks. He doesn't want to lose any siege tanks there. That stim actually is going to be pretty costly against those Mutalisks, as he doesn't have any medevacs right now. So any stim that he does is actually going to cause a serious amount of damage. You can see that it is big enough, in fact, to be able to fit marines through. DongRaeGu continuing to show absolute impeccable Mutalisk control. Well, not quite impeccable, but pretty close. And he is getting actually air weapons level 1 as well, which will definitely help out his Mutalisk, especially in terms of one-shotting things like the siege tanks right there. He is picking up that supply depot right there. Not quite able to get it as the supply depots were lowered. Looks like the attack is coming in though. Thorzain did in fact lift. Nice pickup with the medevac there. Mutalisk actually moved off of being able to engage it there, and the Roaches are going to be able to take a lot of losses as they come in. And actually, that attack was very ill-fated for DongRaeGu. I think he was getting just a little bit overzealous there. He wanted to catch the Marines were, in fact, outside of the base, but Thorzain held that off perfectly. He lifted the supply depots, was able to pick up the Marines in the medevac. The medevac was not sniped or taken out, and so it was a very good job on his part. I think he just stimmed right there. Yeah, that was actually not a very good stim. Certainly not very necessary, although it looks like the stim is actually going to help his Marines just a little bit. I'm not quite sure why he's running so much with his Marines, as there weren't any banelings right there, so he could have easily just taken out those couple of Roaches and Zerglings and then start firing at the Mutalisks. But nonetheless, he did a pretty good job in that engagement as well, and looks to be actually fairly far ahead, I would say, at this point in time. If we go to the income tab, we see that DongRaeGu does have a substantial income lead as a result of that 4th base. So maybe, I mean, even though Thorzain's winning these combats, he is losing the economics war. Looks like the SCVs are coming out. Not sure if Thorzain really wants to fight with those at this point in time. He does want to try to secure a 3rd base right now, which is what he's trying to fight to do. That orbital command is going to take a lot of damage from those Mutalisks, though. He's going to want to move some Marines up there to be able to stop him from being taken out. He really does not want to lose this orbital command right now. He is repairing it with SCVs, and Marines on the top are going to be able to stop that. He does have a nice split of his Marines, keeping the Marines at the base along with the siege tanks to make sure the siege tanks are always protected at this point in time. Marines do have 1-0 upgrade. They're now working on the 2-1 upgrade. Thorzain actually has done a pretty good job. He hasn't been super aggressive with his upgrades, but he's done a pretty good job at keeping his Marines up to date with the newest hardware. They all have iPhones and, I don't know, iPads, I guess, and other trendy materials. Looks like the attack is coming, though. There's a lot of Zerglings moving in. The siege tank was actually on the supply depot, so it was not able to lift the supply depots, but looks like Thorzain was able to clean that out with relatively little difficulty. The siege tanks do quite a number of Zerglings just in general. However, it looks like most of the energy for these medevacs is being drained, so actually the constant combat is hurting Thorzain quite a bit. He does have, wow, what is that, like 6 mules being dropped out of that base. Looks like he had a bunch of extra mules. He actually hasn't mined out the command center in the main. It looks like he's done a pretty good job spreading out his mules, or possibly saving them for this base right here. Part of the reason he had 6 mules, I think, was because he had so much energy rather, in this command center itself. Looks like he's building a number of missile turrets to be able to help protect this expansion, but the Mutalisks are going to be moving in here. They are going to take out that missile turret with relative ease, I suppose. And it looks like it's able to deal a lot of damage, killing a lot of SCVs there. If we go to the Workers Loss tab, we see that DongRaeGu has actually killed 31 SCVs there, which is part of the reason for his huge supply lead at this point in time, as he is now by about 70 supplies, a situation you never really want to be in. You never really want to be behind by 70 supply. Actually, not never really. You never want to be in that situation. I suppose unless like they had 200 supply of workers or something. I don't know. But anyway, yes, either way, that's not something you really want to deal with. He does have a Thor that's going to help immensely, as the Thor does do splash damage to those Mutalisks, so the Mutalisks will have to be much more careful with their control. But that is a lot of Zerglings coming in. This is an orbital command. It is not a planetary fortress, so it's not going to provide much help in the defense there. The Thor is going to get surrounded and taken out right away. The siege tanks in the back are doing a lot of damage as well, but it looks like those are partially being taken out as well. The Zerglings are now moving in to engage the SCVs, and I think that the Mutalisks actually could probably, once he takes out those Marines, I think they probably will be able to take out the command center as well, and probably that siege tank right there on the cliff as well. This orbital command will be lifted, but even a queen coming up for DongRaeGu, I don't know if that was on purpose. Looks like it was. He was actually bringing it up to transfuse a couple of the Mutalisks. Very nice job on his part. That queen will in fact go down now, as it's about to be taken out, as it's trying to stop those Marines to death at the same time. Looks like those Zerglings did in fact get cleared, but Thorzain is now really far down on workers. He lost even more workers in that engagement. If we go to Workers Lost tab, he has now lost 43 workers in this game. He has not killed any of DongRaeGu's, and those Marines were exactly on top in order to be perfectly fungled, and actually I think probably those Mulas could engage, and oh wow, is he going to take out the orbital command as well? I think those Mulas probably could just engage the Marines, kill all the Marines, kill the siege tanks, and basically take the game. Did not choose to do that quite yet, though, as it would have been pretty risky, as if he didn't kill all the Marines and reinforcements were able to come, he would be losing a lot of Mulas, not very cost effectively as well. Looks like the orbital command will be able to re-land after its repairs are completed. However, DongRaeGu is still very active in dealing a lot of damage around here. He does have a macro hatch right here, which I don't know if it's on his hotkey because it has 12 larvae right now. Maybe there's a bunch of larvae everywhere. He has another command center as well. Looks like, or another command center right here, but another hatchery as well at his 5th base right now. So that's going to be effective as well. Looks like DongRaeGu has pooling a number of resources as well, so he should be able to produce basically as many links as he's going to need in these sorts of engagements. He is getting 3-3 right now for his melee weapons and his carapace, and is starting the Ultralisk Cavern. That means there's going to be some very deadly Ultralisks. These Bathings are going to be running in and dealing a lot of damage both to the Marines and probably to the Orbital Command and the SCVs as well, and will probably shut down mining from this and may very well earn the GG, but we're going to have to see exactly how this combat goes. The siege tanks actually do not have enough range in front of the command center to be able to protect it in any sort of real way, but looks like he is actually just going to be going for a flank action. I think his goal was going to be eliminate as many siege tanks as possible, or as many Marines as possible in this engagement, so that the Mutalisks are able to clean house. Looks like all those Bathings rolling in, absolutely demolishing everything in the Terran army, is going to take out that Thor right away. It did deal a lot of damage to those Mutalisks, but he has so many Mutalisks left that I don't think there's any problem. The excess Bathings go in, take out all of the SCVs in this command center, and looks like Thorzain is going to have to GG out of this game, just as 3-3 Ultralisks with 3-3 Ultralisks with their special upgrade isn't on the way, but their armor upgrade, chitinous plating I think it's called, is going to be coming very soon, so those Ultralisks would have ended it if this attack had not. But very nice attack from DongRaeGu, very nice game on his part. It shows you just how effective those Mutalisks can be in a situation where he doesn't start out 20 drones behind, because he lost them all to a Mutalisk drop from Thorzain. Very interesting strat from Thorzain as well, with the 2 orbital commands almost right away. Didn't end up working out for him this time, or paying off rather. Either way. And so we'll see if he tries that strategy or another one in the next game. So this is PGL Milncraft moving on to game number 4. Signing out.